I think the audio is through. I think the audio is working before. Hopefully it still works.
This is the man, isn't he? Mike? Well, you're very welcome. What you're doing is fantastic. So, yeah, I'm happy to be part of it and support however we can.
In 2018, I developed a neurological condition called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. All the nerves in my face had shattered. It looked like I had a stroke. I went from being very athletic to not being able to walk. And they said, your paddleboarding's done. You don't even paddleboard again. The tears just came. I felt like I didn't have any purpose anymore. In that moment, I just felt empty. I had a significant mental health breakdown. I shut down emotionally. I was angry. I wasn't talking to anybody. It got to the point where I was ready to take my life.
Suicide has one ally, and that ally is silence. If we don't talk about it, we allow it to creep into our lives and the lives of people we care about. Nobody wants to be seen as weak. And if you have the belief that your mental illness is a reflection of your weakness, there's a pretty good chance you'll never tell anyone about it. We've all heard of stories where someone, a 16-year-old will take his or her own life. Everybody around, including family, will say, we had no idea something was wrong. We have no idea because of the stigma, because of the shame that people fear. There are people that would rather take their own lives than share their illness, that would rather die than tell people I need help.
There's a mental health component to anything that we're going through, and it's not touched on, and it needs to be touched on.
When I first started speaking about my battles, the president, CEO of Bell Media, he wanted to start something that would raise mental health awareness. And he created this thing called Bell Let's Talk Day. And it gave me a platform one day a year to speak to tons of people in Canada.
My goal is to put mental health programs in schools in every province and territory across the country.
I have this thing, I say change is hope. You need to change something. Do something that says tomorrow could be better than today.
And I will attempt to become the first person with disabilities to cross all 5 Great Lakes.
Paddling across a body of water to raise money can be a great thing. But more important than that is the statement that you make by saying, hey, I'm strong enough to do something that 99.9% of the population could never do. Yet I battle a mental illness. Don't ever assume that I'm weak, because I'm not.
So my name is Mike, and I'm a mental health and disability educator and advocate and speaker. And I was brought here today to speak about the connection between technology and humans and water. I have a little bit of experience using some technology on water and being on water. I've known Ed for several years by way of technology through the internet. Well, Ed's passion is kayaking. My passion was paddleboarding. I operated a stand-up paddleboarding business in Toronto out of Cherry Beach for several years. Back in the day when there were about 15, 16 paddleboarding businesses in Toronto. You can't do that anymore. Toronto now has regulated it, and there's only room for, I believe there's only 6 RFPs that you can bid on. But back, 10 years ago, it was the Wild West, and everybody under the sun had a paddleboarding business. But I learned to paddleboard recreationally, and then I decided I wanted to share my passion with other people and to teach them so that they could go out and enjoy it. Sorry, how do I?
Do you scroll down? Try 2 fingers.
So spanning 2 provinces and 8 states, the Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence region, is an important part of our physical and cultural heritage. We depend on our Great Lakes for drinking water, recreation, transportation, power generation, and economic opportunities. Humans are a part of the Great Lakes system. Commerce and sport fishing, agriculture, recreation, tourism, manufacturing, all of these activities create jobs and provide goods and services for millions of people. In a time before railways and highways, the Great Lakes system served as the primary transportation system for all of us. Many of North America's largest cities were established along the waterway as commerce flourished between ports. Today, the Great Lakes system, or the Great Lakes Seaway, is equally important. They are the largest collection of freshwater lakes in the world, and they border 8 U.S. states and the Canadian province of Ontario, and at times have supplied water to 1/3 of Canadians and 1/7 of Americans. They're vaster than the entire New England region and define beachfront to many people who've never seen the ocean before. So last year, I decided I was going to attempt to become the first person with physical disabilities to cross all 5 Great Lakes. I can't walk in a straight line sometimes, but I can try to be on a paddleboard for 30 consecutive hours. I attempted to cross Lake Ontario to raise funding and awareness for Jack.org, which is a national youth mental health organization. What they do is they put mental health programs and services in high schools, colleges, universities, and communities in every province and territory. Following my mental health breakdown in 2019, I decided I didn't want young people to ever feel alone or isolated like I felt. So I partnered with Jack.org and a number of other organizations to ensure that other people didn't end up going to where I went to. And I decided in the height of COVID, I'd run several events, and then all of a sudden, pandemic broke out. And through that, we quickly realized that we needed to shift gears from having in-person events to making an event centered around something where people could support it and join in. Hence, I tried to cross Lake Ontario in 2021. Unfortunately, I planned the longest crossing of Lake Ontario in Canadian history. It would have been a 3-day consecutive crossing. Anything can happen on the Great Lakes, and it did. The weather was tumultuous, and at the end of the second day, I was pulled out of the water for safety, facing 8 to 10 foot swells. About 6 weeks later, I turned that around. I went away and I kind of licked my wounds and healed myself emotionally. And I came back and everybody thought, oh, he's gonna announce that he's gonna do Lake Ontario again. And I said, I'm coming back and we're gonna do all 5 Great Lakes back to back. And they all laughed at me, all of them. We started with Lake Erie in May of last year. Lake Erie was the shortest crossing of all of them. It took me 8 hours, and we viewed that as a warm-up. I met Vicki Keith, who swam the Great Lakes in 1988, about a month earlier. She swam the Great Lakes in 1988 to raise funding and awareness for children with disabilities. And she said, use Lake Erie as your warm-up because it is. From there, we jumped to Lake Huron. Lake Huron was a 28.5 consecutive hour crossing. You learn a lot of things about yourself when you do stuff like that. But no, it was my first overnight. The Lake Erie crossing, you know, we were stopping every half an hour. They were giving me pieces of croissants to eat and you know, fruit and proteins, and we quickly realized that I was going to have to go on a liquid diet because, you know, we needed to get across that lake as much as possible. So I was drinking all of my calories through the rest of them. It was the first time being on the water throughout the entire night, going through shipping lanes with massive ships. And we carried on, and we went Lake Huron, and then we hopped in a car and drove to Wisconsin, where we crossed Lake Superior into Minnesota, and then from there we went to Michigan and crossed Lake Michigan into the city of Chicago, and then finally a year ago in August of 2022, I crossed Lake Ontario, 21-hour crossing. Arrived on shore to have Hazel McCallie in there, and from there it became one of the largest youth mental health awareness campaigns in Canada. I did not do this on my own. I had a team of 38 people who supported me, meteorologists, boat captains, navigation experts, dietitians, emotional support people on the boat for when I was mentally breaking down saying, I can't do this anymore. But these were all my people, and we were heavily reliant on technology. I used the, I'll show it, you can see it there a little bit. I used the, hello. I was very fortunate in that of all the paddle boards in the world, and it is a booming business, you know, so many different brands. I was very fortunate in that I was gifted the fastest race board in the world. They got a lot of media attention by giving me that. But it's built for speed and stability. The Starboard All-Star. You know, when I was crossing Lake Huron and it took me 30 hours to get across, if I'd been using like a board that you'd get at Canadian Tire, that crossing probably would have taken 50 to 60 hours and it probably wouldn't have been completed. So technology, you know, it's built for aerodynamics to kind of cruise over the water and not bring significant drag behind you. Can you imagine if I'd gone across the Great Lakes on this? It would have taken me forever. So this is what's called a Pest canoe, and it dates back to 8040 BCE. So it's considered the oldest known vessel. It was discovered in the Netherlands, and the remarkable ingenuity of our ancestors. It's been, you know, Egyptian reed boats, used reed boats known as shushush for river transportation. So when we're talking about different ways of transportation, you know, the Great Lakes has been used for so many years to connect us. Whether we're going from, you know, Lake Ontario, you know, we can connect from Toronto to New York, to Rochester. You know, Lake Michigan, you've got several different cities on both sides. But shipping and shipping looks very different now than it used to. But imagine going out there and trying to provide food for your families and trying to bring over shipping parcels from one city to another on something like this. So records of earlier forms of stand-up paddleboarding have been found as early as 3000 BC. And its iterations span over various regions such as Peru, Levant, Italy, and China, with modern stand-up paddleboarding really taking its form in the 1940s in Waikiki in Hawaii. So fishermen may have been among the first paddleboarders. So in this image, we're looking at indigenous groups using paddles, and well, these are canoes, but they're using it as a paddle, as they're standing, so using it as a stand-up paddleboarding. But when we're talking about the different reasons why people paddleboarded, like a lot of people use it for hunting and for fishing, and as far as we know, this went back thousands and thousands of years. It didn't start with me last year, although I'd like to think it did. But no, this went back. Evidence is showing that this goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But paddleboarding really came into prominence in the early 2000s, or in the 2000s, when it evolved into the sport that's recognized today. Its earliest roots trace back to the 18th century when native Hawaiians paddled along the Pacific from island to island. The modern applications of stand-up paddleboarding, or SUP, as some people call it, emerged in the mid-20th century with the radical popularity of surf culture in the 1960s. And here we have an image of, so this is an image that I took when researching when it came into its form. So paddleboarding, modern paddleboarding really kind of grew significantly, and people say it originated in Hawaii, and traditional paddleboarding did. But when we're looking at unconventional, or where it used to come from, it does date back thousands and thousands of years. People used back then just logs to stand on and carve them out, and use planks of wood to paddle to get from one destination to another. So actually that's an image that I used actually. So Ed was just talking about the beauty of Toronto. That's a photo that I took of my clients when I had a paddleboarding business in Toronto, right in front of the CN Tower. So for thousands of years, people have been using vessels to move goods and people across water, whether they're ships. There's discussions right now. I don't know where we are on it, but talking about the ferry between Toronto and Rochester, reactivating that. It was taken down several years ago. But whether it's ferries transporting people, or whether it's shipping containers and ships moving cargo along the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence. We use boats, we use ships, we use so many different vehicles connecting all of us humans, and by extension that technology, because we're all using technology within that. But today the paddleboard is largely used for recreation and leisure promoting both physical and mental well-being. So this looks a little bit different than these are the boards. This is the board that I use to cross all the Great Lakes. It's a little bit different looking than the logs that we've seen that I was showing before. These are built for speed, and these are aerodynamic. They're incredibly lightweight. You can pick this up. It probably costs. It probably weighs about 15 pounds, I would say. But these craft are built for speed. I was very fortunate that technology played a huge part in my crossings. I was very scared to be in the dark on Lake Huron and Lake Superior. So what they did was we used technology again, and we wrapped LED lighting underneath the board so that at night I would press a button and the water would light up around me, which was pretty cool. You don't think Vicky Keith had that option back in 1988. But
a glowing tow float for swimmers.
Yeah. But from the board itself to the lighting to using walkie-talkie devices with my safety boat, which was off to the side. We used technology throughout each of these crossings to make sure that it was a success in the end. Thank you.
Beautiful. That was wonderful. That was really good.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, good. Oh, yes, yes?
Out of curiosity, have you any plans to do something similar again?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I was talking, so I've met a lot of incredible people.
Unquestionably.
I've had some really great conversations with Rick Hansen, and I was like, did people ever ask you if you were going to do something? And he was like, yeah, all the time. I don't know if I would. I was just out. I could show you the video after. It was amazing. Last week I was out in Greenwood in Nova Scotia. I was doing some mental health work with the Department of National Defense. They screened my new documentary for mental health education. And while we were out, they took me out on a helicopter over the Bay of Fundy. And while we were out there, I was thinking, oh yeah, we could definitely do a trip across the Bay of Fundy. I don't know if we could, but.
I personally don't think you need to. You get your message out and simply go out and endorse it as you were doing this afternoon.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Right now, we're just very focused on the film. So the film, the documentary, When Hope Breaks Through, was released into the Canadian and the International Film Festival circuit in September. So it's currently on tour for about 12 months. We just won at the Central Alberta Film Festival. We just won Best Documentary at the Durham Region Film Festival, at the Hamilton Film Festival. And it features Michael Landsberg, the director of CAMH, the founder of the new 988 telephone number that's just been launched in Canada, and a number of Canadian advocates and mental health experts. So I'm just kind of focused on that right now.
Excellent. Beautiful. Okay, so, yeah. So, we should get. So next up is AJ, and then at some point I'd love to get a group picture of us afternoon speakers, to you and Ed and maybe AJ and I. We got Reed Godshaw here, who's photographer from the Grammy Awards and that sort of thing. He's got the photo booth set up outside. Maybe we can get a group shot. You got to take off, right? Yeah, do you want to take a 5-minute break? And Reed, could we take a 5-minute break and get all of us in a shot before he has to go? And,
How many people?
I would say Ed, AJ, and yeah, Mike Shoreman.
Yeah, we do that.
4 of us. afternoon speakers, and then we'll come back and finish the session.
My question was going to be when.
Because Ed has to go, I wanted to. This is really an honor to connect to have all you